start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Rudeva Deva. Hari Om. So we are discussing the subtle body, and in that starting with first 5 jnanendriyas, the sense organs, and we said there are 5, and these 5 sense organs that we are familiar are related essentially to the 5 the subtle elements that are formed initially, which again form into a grossification 5 gross elements. So all that are interrelated. So Vedanta is packed with self-consistency in this process, and these 5 sense organs are the ones that through which I interact with the world. The senses go out, so I can see the world only through these 5 sense organs that I have. So the knowledge of the world comes using with the utility of these 5 senses. If my 5 senses are not functioning, there is no way I can have perception of the world. So the world is there or not becomes again indeterminate, because the existence of the world has to be established by the knowledge of my existence. So other people will know it even if I don't know it. One can argue like that. But even other people know it, I won't know that other people know it unless they communicate to me. For that my 5 senses again, hearing, has to be operating. So in either way, from my point or from everyone's point, from their point, the existence of the world established only when these 5 senses operating and functioning in the world and functioning to their capacities, and depending upon the sense capacities, and I'll be perceiving the world also. As I said, if I am color blind, then I won't see all the colors also. So depending upon my senses, plus all other conducive environment for me, for the senses to operate in the, for them to grasp the attributes of the object, I can know the world. We should also know that the senses can only know the attributes of the object, even including the form and color or attribute, but not the matter content of the object. There is no sense organ that really measures the matter content of the organ. I can say whether it's a soft or hard by pressing it, or by tasting it, I can say whether what kind of taste it is, or by hearing if it makes a noise, or by colors, I can see whether it's this form and colors are known through the eyes. So I can know through 5 senses the world, not the matter per se, but only the attributes of the matter. I have to assume that there is a matter which has attributes. And depending upon the attributes that are measured by the senses, depending upon how environment is conducive for my senses to function efficiently, I know the world. Also to be noted is that the attributes belong to the object. Then therefore attributes doesn't come to me. Attributes remain with the object only. The form and color of the chair is with the chair, not with. So what do I gain? What do I really see? So even from the point of our science or from the point of Vedanta only, it's only reflected attributes of the object only senses can see. This also has to be understood, because I am seeing not even the attributes per se, only the reflected attributes of the object. And we'll go later into analysis of what attributes are. They're called the Swarupa Lakshanas and the Tatastha Lakshanas. All that are implied in terms of, because I am seeing the world only through the attributes. It's attributive knowledge, and if the attributes that I am gathering are incorrect or insufficient, we said that we commit errors in terms of perception. And that's how the error analysis has been accounted in the previous talks also. But all that has to be understood, because these five senses are called jnanendriyas, or the knowledge that I can gain. Also to be noted here is, when I open my eyes and when my mind is behind, and if the environment is conducive, I cannot but see. There is no more, the knowledge is not that I am opening my eyes, my mind is awake and I am looking at it and say I refuse to see. That cannot be happen, because the knowledge is not Purushatantram. Purushatantram means it doesn't depend upon me. I think of something else, that means my mind has gone somewhere else, then I may not gather the information that is gathered by the senses or not reported to the mind, because mind is not available. So all that has to be understood also. So knowledge itself is not Purushatantram. That means it doesn't depend on me. Only on me is I have to keep the mind open, and I have to keep the eyes open, and I have to keep and look at the object that I see, and that which is there pratyaksham, that is directly visible, I cannot but see. I cannot but hear. I cannot but taste when I put something in the mouth. So all these things are all not in my control, but called Jnana Shakti, functions because Jnana itself is Vastu Tantram. It depends on the nature of the object. I am looking at the red chair and say I want to see blue. That's not possible, because it only gives out the red color, because all other colors are absorbed, leaving the red color alone for me to see. That's why it looks red. This is a part of the theory of colors. So the idea is the Jnana Shakti comes because of the five senses, and Jnana Shakti, because it's the knowledge involved. Knowledge is not willed, it's not something that I can control, it occurs automatically. That's why preparation of the mind is in my control, but knowledge, on contemplating on that, the knowledge, Goddess Saraswati has to descend, but she will descend provided I have do appropriate prayer. Prayer is not doing arati or something, preparing the mind to receive the appropriate knowledge. For physics, I have to prepare my knowledge in that field where the prerequisites for that subject has to be gained, then the Goddess Saraswati will descend. For Vedanta, we said we need a fourfold qualifications for Vedanta knowledge. So it will be revealed to you when you are prepared by mind. That's what called revelation, not I am gaining the knowledge. I discovered. You cannot discover it. You can prepare your mind so that the discovery takes place. All that is implied in the Jnana Shakti. And there are five, in addition to the five Jnanendriyas, according to Vedanta, is also subtle body consists of Karmendriyas. Five Karmendriyas also. And five Karmendriyas include Vak, Panipada, and that means the speech is Karmendriya, and Pani is the hands, where I perform using hand actions. Pada, the feet, where to walk around I need the feet. And also the excretory system and reproductive system. So all together are organs of action, and these are actions through which I can transact with the world. So for me, I can perceive the world through the five senses, but when I am transacting the world, I need these five. So only when I am only perceiving, I see the reflected image of the objects through their attributes. But is there really object there or not object? Is it a hallucination? Is there really object there or not? For me, only I know by, if the chair are there, I go and sit there or touch it or do some transaction is required. Therefore, for transactional purposes where I gain the knowledge of transactional world, are called a vyavaharika satyam. A transactional reality is established when I transact. So the world itself that I see in the waking state is called transactional reality. That's called vyavaharika satyam. Because chair is there, you cannot deny the chair. But also one has to be, the Vedanta is very clear that I don't create a chair and then see the chair. My mind doesn't create it. It is some other mind that we will go into details later. So it is not an ideal philosophy where the mind itself is projecting the object and then seeing it. That's not the philosophy. That may be Vijnanavadins, but Vijnanavadins is part of the Buddhism. But from point of Vedanta, my local mind doesn't create that chair and then see that. Chair is there for me to see. My mind is only behind it. So these 5 karmendriyas and 5 jnanendriyas are a means of transacting with the world, and therefore called the total 10 indriyas, including 5 jnanendriyas, which are called a jnana shakti, and karmendriyas called kriya shakti, the power to operate. Shakti is a potential energy where I can use it for action. That's how even in science also defined. It's a potential energy where action can be done by transacting, where the kinetic energy comes into picture by losing the potential energy. So there is a form, action is required, and the force comes into picture, and that is what is called Shakti. All that is essentially Vedanta is also science. It doesn't negate or dismiss the other sciences, but only provides you something extra which is other sciences cannot do it, and that includes the conscious entity, the life principle, and all that are included in the Vedantic analysis. This 10 Indriyas and 10 people operate. It's called Ravanasura. Ravanasura is Dasamukha. Dasamukha means 10-headed monster, because he lives only at that level. That's why it's called 10-headed. So whenever we live at that level, what level? 5 jnanendriyas and 5 karmendriyas. That's all. We are going after sense objects and enjoying the sense objects. And if that's all our life is, then we are all Ravanas only. And for Ravana to transcend, because he's stomaching everything, his life is only in enjoyment. Stomach is you putting everything, information into it, and that's how all the 5 jnanendriyas and karmendriyas are being fed into the stomach. That means for his experience, and only way to destroy is use by the teacher a Brahmastra, where Rama comes as a teacher and using a Brahmastra where he has to destroy the very source from which the whole thing is coming from him, and that's how the Ravana gets liberated. So this is essentially a Ramayana, but we are all Ravanas if we live only at that level. Not Ravana is only a mythological story, but story trying to indicate something for us to use that, because Rama is Sarve Ramanti iti Rama, where it is reveled by everybody. Sarveshu Ramanti is, or Sarve Ramanti. Sarve Ramanti means everyone revels in that, means everyone revels in the very life itself, and that is enlivened by that. That is Rama. Rama is there in everyone's heart. And Sarveshu Ramanti also, one who revels in everybody also. So, Yomam Pasyati Sarvatra, Sarvancha Mai Pasyati, one who sees me everywhere and everything in me only. So, everything is in Rama only. That's why Rama name is greater than even the form of Rama, because the name goes with the naming, goes with the knowledge, because knowledge is the superior to any names and forms and all that. So therefore, the 10-headed is 10, nothing but 5 jnanendriyas and 5 karmendriyas. These are Sakayodvayo Shakti Mulakam. The Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi in the Upadesasara, this is 2 branches where there is a Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. And in the Vedantic analysis, there is Ichha Shakti also. When I have the Jnana Shakti, potential to know and the potential to act, but this potential has to operate. Operate comes from the Ichha Shakti. That means desire to use those Jnana Shakti that I have and transactional Shakti I have. There is a desire coming in, and desire comes from the Vasanas. Vasanas in a subtler form expresses itself as the desire at the intellect level, and agitations at the mind level, and actions at the body level. So all that is therefore you have a Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. Jnana Shakti coming into 5 Jnanendriyas, Kriya Shakti comes from the Karmendriyas, and the potential to drive these comes from Vasanas, which is essentially comes as the Ichha Shakti. These are being analyzed to know that where exactly, why something comes here. It says, even though one knows why people misbehave, and that's what Arjuna asked the question. It says, Kama yesha krodha yesha rajoguna samudbhava mahashino mahapapma vijyena mihivairanam. Krishna says, because of the Kama and Krodha. Kama is desire is pushing them to act, even though I am getting involved into and getting cocooned myself, like a silkworm where I am getting cocooned inside itself by the same thread that I am creating. In the same way, same action results, and vasanas and more actions and more vasanas. I am essentially trapped from my own because of my own desires, and that's what is essentially happening. So therefore, the Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti and Ichha Shakti play into picture in terms of transacting with the world. So these are the part of subtle body, and they are coming because there is an operation involved. Therefore, they are also called part of Jnana Shakti coming from the Sattva Guna, and the activity comes from the Rajoguna. So the Rajoguna and Sattva Guna are involved in these Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. And Tamoguna is just a matter, inertness, where no activity or inaction is involved. Laziness, procrastination are all part of the property of the Tamoguna. So whenever one is dynamically acting, it is the Rajoguna that is driving him to do it. When one wants to do the study where he is not running around, he is sitting and contemplating on the subject, that means it is a Sattva Guna is predominant. So in this evolutionary process, one goes from the Tamoguna to Rajoguna to Sattva Guna, and these gunas become a means in which the mind is also evolved. One who is predominantly Sattva Guna wants to go and learn, and that's why it is predominantly Sattvic Guna oriented. Rajasic Guna, he cannot sit in the place, he cannot sit, even if you take him to a Vedanta class, he becomes restless because he wants to go and act, and action becomes a motivating force, and because he is predominantly in the Rajoguna. And the one who he neither wants to act nor wants to study, he wants to lie down and eat potato chips called couch potatoes. And all they would is Tamoguna only, where for him to do something, no Vedanta can help and no activity will help. He has to get up first and do some Ashtanga Yoga so that the body comes under his control, so that he evolves slowly from the Tamoguna to Rajoguna. And for him, once the mind has understood, by action he is not going to get what he is desiring. What he is desiring is eternal, inexhaustible happiness that he is longing for, and for that only, once he learns by his own experience, then he says, yes, what is the purpose of life? What am I doing? I have accomplished so much, still I am unhappy. So what needs to be done? When that question starts coming, tad vijnanartham sa gurum eva abhigache. For him only the advice comes from the scripture, says you go to a teacher and find out what the nature of the reality is. Why you are not getting what you want, and how to get what you want, and that has to be essentially the liberation. Konama bandhaha katameshu agataha katam pratistasya katam vimukshaha. That's how the student asks, and this is the response from that. So we are talking about the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas as a part of that. That information is a part of subtle body. The next level of subtle body, we're going into the inner antahkaranam. Anta means inner instruments, because these 5 sense organs and 10 karmendriyas are going out in transacting in the world. And now we are talking about antahkaranam, means inner equipments, that is inner instruments of knowledge. And there are 4 types in the inner instruments, and that is essentially the buddhi, the intellect, the mind, the emotional aspect. So the intellectual discriminative faculty, the buddhi, then emotional locus for emotion, that is the mind. Then we are talking about ahankara. Ahankara is the ego. It is I am this, that is ahankara. And the memory, chittam. So there are 4, all are subtle, they are not grasped. I cannot use objective tools to analyze any of this. But then everybody knows that they have it. At the same time, they deny that, oh, we cannot see, prove it again. They are asking about the perceptual type of validation. So what these are subtler things, that's why they are called subtle body, but everyone has it. As a human being, they are much more evolved, and these 4 are all of the nature of thoughts, and therefore they are subtle, and they are classified depending on their functions. This we will go into the details in the next talk. So we are talking about, after karmendriyas and jnanendriyas, as a part of the subtle body, we will be going to analysis of more inner ones, that's called antahkaranam, inner instruments, and that we will do in the next talk. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Very good.